Out on the racetrack now, that is Ayrton Senna going for yet another pole position. John Watson, this looks a quick one.
Yes, it does. Senna's on his quick lap now. You can see just the way that he's attacking the circuit. He wants to be in pole position in his Brazil Grand Prix. Sao Paulo is his hometown, and really this is a very, very big race for Ayrton Senna.
Yes, just the odd spark coming from underneath the car where it's bottoming out. What about the racetrack? Do you like the look of the new racetrack?
I think it's a very good racetrack. Obviously, they put a lot of thought into it, but it's been shortened from the original 4.5 miles. Look at that, Ayrton, right on the very edge of the racetrack. But they've shortened the track down 2.5 miles, and really, in a way, I'm disappointed because the Interlagos racetrack, in my view, was one of the world's all-time great race circuits.
Well, we can call this man a 30-year-old now. His birthday was just a couple of days ago, and he's certainly giving himself a birthday present here with a really flying lap. A beautiful Honda V10 engine in this latest McLaren, using all the road up, John.
Yes, Senna, I mean, he's got this ability to go out and do these blindingly fast qualifying laps, and we're just going to wait and see what he's going to do on this one. Look, he cuts across the pit lane entrance, and that's somebody, I would say, rather cheeky of him, because most drivers are trying to stay out of that lane.
Well, that's his time. 1 minute 17.769. Speed of 124.4 miles per hour, just slowing down now, cooling down that. Ayrton Senna, that is the provisional pole time. If he maintains that position, it will be the 43rd pole of his career. And, well, he's just tootling round now and back to the pits.
Yeah, these qualifying tires, Andrew, they're only good really for one lap at a time. If you're lucky, you might make one set out of the two at the end of the day, but usually it doesn't really give you any advantage. You just got to get that one clear lap.
Yes, and we just saw a couple of the lakes there, those rather red muddy lakes, this circuit Interlagos between lakes, literally.
Yes, those lakes have been there way back in the 70s as well, and it was a bit of a concern.
Well, Gerhard Berger now on his quick lap. Gerhard Berger attempting to make it on all McLaren front row, and indeed Gerhard second fastest, but now we join Thierry Boutsen on his quick lap. Thierry recording the third fastest time of qualifying. Quick shot from off the camera. Now we go to the other Williams, Riccardo Patrese. These pictures recorded earlier, and indeed Riccardo Patrese setting the fourth fastest time. Front row of the grid provisionally, Senna, Berger. Second row, Boutsen, Patrese. What about the Ferraris?
Well, that's a big improvement for the Williams, because in Phoenix 2 weeks ago they were decidedly off the pace, and suddenly they're back on it again and ahead of the two Ferraris, something I hadn't expected to happen.
There is the time, 18.465, good for fourth position so far. More qualifying tomorrow. That, of course, will be live and world exclusive on Eurosport. The Patrick Head designed Williams.
It's amazing, Andrew, now he's going quicker, the car begins to look better.
Yes, Nigel Mansell recorded the fifth fastest time, and this man, Alain Prost, sixth. So, provisionally, the third row of the grid will be Mansell and Prost in the two Ferraris. I think, John, you expected to see the Ferraris a little higher up the grid in front of the Williams.
Yes, I did, but Alain Prost complained after the practice session finished that his engine didn't feel as powerful as he had hoped for, though he was still the quickest car down the straight, but that indicates they're running with very little downforce on the car, and in fact Nigel Mansell has decided to add more downforce to his car for the Saturday qualifying, so therefore their speeds may be down in the straight, and it may justify Prost's complaint of not having enough horsepower.
News too, John, of a problem with Ayrton Senna's neck, I believe.
Yes, during that wonderfully quick lap we just saw him do, one of the bumps in the circuit gave him a jolt in his neck, and he ended up having a stiff and painful neck, so he's decided to have a head restraint or a head strap fitted to his helmet to keep his head upright, but he doesn't anticipate any big problem in the race. They've got the Willie Dungle massage team with them this weekend, so any problems with his neck will be well sorted out before Sunday's race.
Willie Dungle, the Austrian that's looked after your health in the past. Another shower of sparks from Alain Prost. He's cooling down now, 1 minute 18. Still we're seeing Alain Prost. Seventh fastest in qualifying, Pierluigi Martini, the man who was so sensationally right up at the front at Phoenix, Arizona. And eighth fastest, Andrea De Cesaris, rounding out the top 10, Jean Lazy ninth and Philip Alliot 10th. And here is Martini just going past one of the Onyxes. the highest of the Pirelli runners. That's a little Pierluigi Martini. The Minardi running, of course, with the conventional V8 engine, the old, venerable old Cosworth engine.
These engines, Andrew, the V8 Cosworths and Judds, are really at a bit of a disadvantage at Interlagos. It is a power circuit, and also, of course, Interlagos, or Sao Paulo, is 800 meters high, 2,500 feet, and that takes its toll on the V8 engine slightly more than on the V10 and V12 opposition.
News of your fellow Ulsterman, Martin Donnelly. He's in big problems in the pits.
Well, Martin Donnelly and Derek Warwick have had problems. In fact, Derek Warwick is the one that suffered more. His race car was unable to practice. It had a fuel pressure problem. They didn't want to use the spare car for some reason, so it meant Martin Donnelly only got 5 laps in his race car. He jumped out, let Derek Warwick get in, swapped the car around. So they 2 drivers in 1 car this session.
Here's another disappointed man, only 13th fastest from Nelson Piquet in the Benetton Ford. Remember, Nelson was really back in the speed at Phoenix. 13th fastest, a number of little niggling problems with that car.
Yes, he also had a few problems with traffic, and this circuit, in fact, looks going to be a difficult one for overtaking in the race. And I think if you get behind a slower car, with the number of corners that flow into one another, getting past is going to be a difficulty, and Piquet had that problem during qualifying today.
Yes, and his teammate Sandro Nannini in 15th spot. Good news from Gianni Morbidelli, who crashed at Phoenix, 16th fastest. Barilla 17th, Suzuki 18th, Nakajima 19th, Larini 20th. And there is the top 4, Senna, Berger, Boutsen, Patrese. Ayrton Senna on the pole, Nigel Mansell 5th, Alan Prost 6th, and Pierluigi Martini. You've seen all their laps here on world exclusive coverage of qualifying on Eurosport. 13th was Nelson Piquet, 14th Martin Donnelly, and at 25th spot we heard about the problems of Derek Warwick. Well, that's it for today. Friday's qualifying. The racing really is on here. From John Watson and myself, it's goodbye. I hope you're with us tomorrow for that very special coverage from Eurosport, and of course join us for the big race on Sunday. Look what happened in this morning's practice session. A sensation, this. Senna in the brown and claggy. The McLaren spun off at the corner named after him. He needed a cut toe to get him out, so even Senna, the great Senna, can make mistakes. Alan Prost still in 6th spot in his second drive with Ferrari, just a fraction of a second behind Nigel Mansell. Here's the reigning world champion talking to a French interviewer, and he seems happy enough with that new team. Alan Prost still in 6th place. And news from the Longines monitor. That man there, Jean Alesi, is one of the few today to improve. He has moved up to 7th spot. He's ahead now of Pierluigi Martini. That's the Oxford-based final qualifying for Sunday's Brazilian Grand Prix. Can Ayrton Senna hang on to pole position? I'm Andrew Marriott, my co-commentator John Watson. Well, Senna was fastest yesterday, and let's have a look at that sensational lap. John Watson is going to talk us through it.
Ayrton Senna coming up now to the centre curves. 3rd gear corner, dropping downhill, 4th gear. And this now is coming onto the fastest, 2nd fastest part of the circuit, where in 6th gear he will get up to something like 180 miles an hour before he has to brake. Back down to 4th gear for a very fast and tricky left-hand corner running between the 2 lakes that are built inside the circuit. Up to 5th gear, running out and just grabbing 6th briefly before he comes back down to 4th gear for this double right-hand corner with a nasty bump on the exit of the 2nd part. And Senna, as you see, running wide on the 2nd part of the corner. Down to 2nd gear now, turning right, grabbing 3rd briefly, then downhill left, accelerating hard in 3rd, up to 4th gear again, braking back down to 2nd gear for the 2nd tight right-hand corner, then accelerating up to 3rd, grabbing 4th again, dropping downhill, coming up to the last corner before the straight, back to 3rd gear, and yet again now hard on the power, 4th gear, 5th gear, and finally into 6th gear, where the car will gradually approach 190 miles an hour coming across the start-finish line before he has to brake and yet again into the famous Senna corners.
Yes, there you see the time, 1 minute 17.769, the provisional pole. Senna just on his cooling down lap now. The qualifying tyres completely worn out after that one run. Here, the man who put it onto the 2nd row of the grid, a quick shot from the car of Thierry Boutsen of Belgium. Thierry Boutsen and Riccardo Patrese in third and fourth places. There, the qualifying from yesterday. Senna, Berger on the front row of the grid. Thierry Boutsen, Riccardo Patrese on the second row of the grid. Now let's have a look at the third row of the grid. Nigel Mansell and Alain Prost, the two Ferraris. And the best of the non-V10s and V12s, Pierluigi Martini going well yet again in the Minardi. Some boys in a bit of trouble. Nelson Piquet, he's won the Brazilian Grand Prix before. 1 minute 19.629 from him. Martin Donnelly and Derek Warwick 14th and 25th in the two Lotuses. Lots of problems there. We'll be talking about that a little later. Frank Durney, the designer of Lotus cars, you've changed from a V8 engine to a V12 this year. Why all these different configurations?
Well, I think the 8-cylinder engines are more readily available. If you look at the sums, the more cylinders you have, the more horsepower you have. Because the chassis regulations are a lot more strict than they were 10 years ago, one of the big ways in which you can get more performance is more horsepower. The more engine manufacturers around now than there were last time we were normally aspirated, and most of them have chosen a 10 or a 12-cylinder engine rather than an 8, which was common the last time normally aspirated was around. And it's very difficult to know really which is the best solution. A 10 is a little smaller and lighter perhaps, but shouldn't be as powerful as a 12. So you're really trying to balance the shape of a 12, which isn't so convenient, against the horsepower, which should be better.
But why should it be better?
It's got more piston area for a given cubic capacity.
Now Ford, meanwhile, with their brand new engine, which we see in the Benetton, they've stayed with V8. Do you think that's a marketing decision?
No, I think they obviously decided that they could make a competitive engine within the 8-cylinder format. Certainly, if you're a chassis designer, if an engine designer came along and said, we can do as much horsepower with a V8, will that be all right? You would welcome them with open arms, because obviously it's much easier to design a nice car around an 8-cylinder engine than around a 10 or a 12.
Some of the 12s we've seen here are in even different configurations. We've got a flat 12, a boxer. Ferrari used to use that very successfully in the past. That's the Subaru engine. And then we've got a W12, which isn't proving very successful yet in the Life engine. Why have they gone that route?
Well, the flat 12, to be honest, I do not understand. Somebody obviously decided they want horizontally opposed engines, and I cannot for the life of me think what benefit it bestows within a modern layout of a Formula One engine with a flat bottom and the various other limitations. I don't see that.
Centre of gravity, of course.
Well, the centre of gravity ends up quite high, because whilst the centre of gravity of the engine's fairly low, you have to put an exhaust system underneath it, and you then end up with the crankshaft having to be raised quite high, so you end up with an engine that has to be mounted very high in the chassis. So the net result, I wouldn't imagine, is very much lower centre of gravity. In fact, it could be higher. The W12 obviously has been done because it's shorter. There have been W configuration engines a long time ago. I'm not an engine man, so I couldn't make any explanation about the problems there might be with bearings and what have you, but certainly having one set of inlet trumpets next to one set of exhaust pipes doesn't appeal to me very much.
3 cylinder heads it's got, and some of the conrods are actually longer than some of the others.
Ah, well, it's adventurous, isn't it?
Say that. You don't expect great success from that engine?
I hate to pour cold water on it, really. You never know. But it's like people say, if the 10-cylinder engine was the way to go, then why hadn't someone done it before? Because you know that, like most of these pieces of technology, they've come and gone in fashion, and nobody has ever built a V10 until this current formula. And yet the World Championship was won by one. The first 2 teams in the World Championship last year were running 10-cylinder engines, so can't be all bad, can it?
A man who worked with Frank Durney last year, and now with the only state-of-the-art V8 engine from Ford, is 3 times world champion Nelson Piquet of Brazil.
I don't think we can start the season thinking of winning a championship, but who knows? I think can come a very good car. Barnard is helping out to do the car already for 1990, and of course he's doing a complete new project for 1991. But with this engine, if you have a little bit better car, I think it will be very competitive.
People were saying at the end of this year that maybe you'd lost some of your motivation. What do you feel about that?
Well, that I've been here every time I win the championship. When I won the championship in '81, they told me that. I won in '83, they told me again. And '87, they told me again that I don't care. Now I know what I want, and I know my possibilities, and I know how I love motor racing. And
are you just as keen to win now as you ever were?
yes, and now even more now, because I can see in a few years' time I have to stop, and I have to enjoy the time now to win now.
How about the Benetton team? It's an English team, but with a strong Italian connection. And of course, you're very close to Italy. You find you're getting on very well with the team? Is it working out well for you?
Yeah, so far, a couple of phases I've been working before. You know, after so many years in Formula One, you find some mechanics, you meet some mechanics again in other teams, and I've always been very lucky to have a very good relationship with everybody that I've been working in these 11 years in Formula One. But here, people looks like very happy, and I hope we can continue happy, and even more happy if we can win some races.
And your teammate, Sandro Nannini, obviously not a man to say no to a good joke now and again. You must get on well together.
Yeah, he's a fantastic guy. I think it'll be no problem. Even if I'll be quicker than him and he'll be quicker than me, I don't think we really go have any problem.
From a former Lotus driver to a newcomer with a famous mark, Martin Donnelly. Martin joins Formula One following a successful year in Formula 3000. Despite problems in Phoenix, he really impressed there. Let's go behind the helmet of Martin Donnelly. Martin, in Formula One terms, you're the new kid on the block. How do you feel about being a rookie?
Obviously excited and nervous, two views. Been given a fantastic opportunity in joining Camel Team Lotus. But at the same time, I've got to learn new circuits. It's a new atmosphere, new places to go to, and I feel a little bit lost, you know. A lot of people ask, what are the difference between 3000 and Formula One? And my answer to that is the physical side. That was brought home to me when I tested just prior to Christmas at Estoril. It is quite a physical little circuit, and you know, it just dawned to me that I thought I was fit enough certainly for Formula 3000, but it's a different ball game when it comes to Formula One. The G-forces on the neck and the arms. So I've spent the winter training hard and building those areas up.
Tell me about your training program.
Well, I have my own physio and trainer, and they come to the home and to the gym, and I get a complete physio after that. I do light repetitions and of weights. I do a bit of swimming, a bit of squash, some running for the stamina, but mostly just to keep in tone. You don't want to be putting on bulk because the current Formula One car is forever getting smaller. So it's just a matter of trying to keep in tone, building up the important areas, the arm muscles, the shoulders and the neck, and hopefully that will stand by you at the end of the day.
What about diet? Any special diets?
Yes, you know, you can't afford it. It's very tempting over the New Year and Christmas time to sort of podge away at it and put on the beef. So you've got to keep a careful eye on what you eat. A lot of carbohydrates. You know, when you're in training, I take a carbohydrate drink. So it's a continuous cycle all the way through the year, and you just got to keep on top of the weight. It's important if the chief designer are keeping the weight off the car. It's not a lot important the driver piling on the pounds. So you've got to do your bit as well.
You're an Ulsterman at Eurosport. I'm going to have a co-commentator, another Ulsterman, John Watson. He's given you quite a lot of help in the past, hasn't he?
He has, and even now. I mean, he's warned me about this new bloke, Derek Warwick. You know, so John's there at the other end of the telephone. He's offered me lots of advice, and I'll be ringing and annoying John throughout the season.
Martin, originally announced you were driving for Nissan. You don't seem to be in their latest lineup. What's happened?
Generally, that was in the middle of last year. Obviously, there's no guarantees in motor racing. Nissan were very keen at that stage to sign me up. Camel Team Lotus weren't able at that early stage to give me any sort of confirmation of their future plans. So I signed an option with the team. Fortunately for me, Camel Team Lotus took up their option. And obviously you can't do both. You can't commit and do the job properly to both programs. Nissan understood that, and were very understanding, and I've now concentrated my sole efforts into the Grand Prix scene.
And working with Derek Warwick, he's got a peculiar brand of humour, could keep you on your toes, I suggest.
Yes, the old man, and he's not so old, and he's not so slow either. Derek will certainly keep me on my toes, and hopefully I'll be able to do it to him as well. Derek's got a lot of experience, and I would like to be able to sort of like drip away at that during the year, and hopefully he won't make me too often and keep me on the straight and narrow.
Donnelly, a man going places. We're still having problems with our pictures of final qualifying. And here's some shots from the track. John Watson, your comments.
Yeah, he's got Michele Alboreto in the footwork arrows. He's on a lap here, but in reality I don't see either Alboreto or Alex Caffey in the footwork arrows standing very much chance of success. It'll really come down to the very good reliability that Arrows build into their cars, and they hope maybe they can pick up some of the points in the bottom of the top 6, but really no chance of success on the Sunday race.
So if you'd like to predict a winner, John?
Well, I think the winner is going to come from one of the top 3 teams, but of course you've got a Lacey in 7th, Martini in 8th, and even Andrea de Cesaris in 9th. So those 3 guys, they're on Pirelli tyres, the other 6 are on Goodyear, and ultimately this race I think will be a race about which tyre company is going to produce the best product on the day.
Because last year we had a sensational start at the race over at Rio, and Senna spinning off, and because Senna has never won the Brazilian Grand Prix.
He really wants to win very badly in Sao Paulo, and first of all, to win a Grand Prix in Brazil would be, I think, one of the high points of his career. But he must get through the first corner, and the first corner on the Interlagos circuit is a very slow and tight corner, and it's going to be a very difficult start. I think that the person that gets into that corner first will have a big advantage, but if you don't make it first, you're going to have to be very careful, watch all around you, and not least of all, watch behind you.
Well, here we see the car just coming up to that final corner. That's part of the original racetrack of Interlagos. The circuit cut from 5 miles to 2.5, 8 kilometres to 4, but still the original pit road. And there you see a bit of the old track behind. Well, again, apologies, we don't have any more action, but let's look at the final lineup. At least we do have that. Just coming up now, those grid positions, and there it is. This is the final times. The front row of the grid, Ayrton Senna, Gerhard Berger and the McLarens. Very few improvements today. Thierry Boutsen and Riccardo Patrese, and then it's Nigel Mansell and Alan Prost just as yesterday. Alessi, as we told you, up into 7th place with Pierluigi Martini. 9th and 10th is de Cesaris and Alio. Good performance by the Ligier pilot. Eric Bernard in 11th with the Lamborghini. 12th, Stefano Modena, then it's Nelson Piquet still in 13th. Martin Donnelly, who we were talking to, is 14th. Nannini 15th. He'll be disappointed with that. Good performance from Gianni Morbidelli. He'll be starting his first Grand Prix. Then it's Paolo Martini, Aguri Suzuki, Nakajima, Suzuki in front of Nakajima. Then Larini, Groyard, Wojtek, Alboreto, Warwick, Caffey, Dalmas. Let's look at the unhappy chaps that didn't quite make it. Well, Stefan Johansson and JJ Leto, Capelli and Gugelmin. Well, that's the lineup for Sunday's race. On the other side of the world at Suzuka in Japan is the